Confidence in the 2025 LSU Tigers growing among odds makers. We'll explain. It's Locked on LSU. Here we go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get great podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you sincerely for that. Recording this episode from my hotel room in Houston, Texas, where we're here for an LSU alumni event, watching the Astros and the Nationals. We're hoping to see Dylan Cruz, but the former Tiger great is on a rehab assignment in Rochester. So unfortunately didn't get to see Cruz, but a great night with the LSU Alumni Association. And it was a great day from a perception standpoint for the LSU football Tigers in 2025. Let me explain what I mean. I know we oftentimes look at preseason projections and have various reactions. We can react sort of viscerally to preseason all-conference teams or different publications putting out their or projected order of finish and rankings and a lot of different things like that. And I get why it's out there. It's all out there for conversation, and we enjoy conversation around the sport we love in college football and really all sports. But I always look at Las Vegas projections through a little bit of a different prism, because the objective of odds makers is not some subjective opinion from a writer, maybe laced with some degree of bias. Odds makers, they are quite literally, their objective is to set a line, to set a number, to try to encourage equal action on both sides of that number so they'll make a profit. All that to say, I don't really care if you sports bet. I like to sports bet, candidly. I sports bet on basically every sport. I love to do it. I don't bet a lot of money, but it makes it more interesting and engaging. But if you don't, that's okay. This is just an exercise for you to understand the reason they're able to build really giant palatial buildings in the desert in Nevada is because those odds makers are really good at using their metrics and analytics to set lines, to generate action on both sides of that number, adjusting accordingly when money comes in on one side, so they lower their liability and make a profit on the juice or on the public losing. So I'm always going to be interested when odds makers put out numbers because it's rooted in objective metrics. There's not an ounce of bias in it. They're just trying to decide how this game is going to go so they can set an appropriate number. So when you go through the offseason, there are several sort of benchmarks whereby odds makers will update point spread. So you'll see early lines that'll come out like immediately after a season ends. So the 2024 football season ends. Shortly thereafter, odds makers are putting what they call futures bets out there, where you can bet way in advance. And then the transfer portal happens, and then you go through spring football. You feel like you learn a little bit more. Maybe another guy transfers. Nico Iamaleava leaving Tennessee is a great example of what would move a line for Tennessee. Something significant like that, or an unfortunate injury. So at that point, they'll update odds, which happened at the beginning of June. Well, now that talking season is over and teams are about to begin fall camp, odds makers have updated the point spreads for this 2025 football season in some of the marquee games. And there were 5 LSU games that have had the point spread updated. And 2 of them saw really significant movement. I'll tell you what they are, and I want to explain why I think it's significant. So here were the 5. It was Clemson, Florida, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama. Those are the 5 LSU games whereby odds makers are putting out advanced lines, point spreads on those games. Clemson, virtually no movement. Clemson's still about a 3.5 point favorite over LSU. A lot of people scoff at that. They should be. LSU's lost 5 straight openers. Clemson returns a fifth-year senior quarterback. They've got a coach that's won 2 national titles. They have arguably the best defensive line in college football. LSU replacing 4 of its 5 starters on the offensive line. This is a true road game for LSU in Clemson. Yes, Clemson should be the favorite in this game. It's not to say LSU can't win it. It's just to say Clemson should be the betting favorite at home in this game. And so they're about a field goal favorite. Okay, no change there. Florida in Baton Rouge, LSU is a 5.5-point favorite. That game was closer to a touchdown, 6.5 or 7. So a little bit of a lean maybe toward the Gators, making that perhaps a bit more competitive. A&M hasn't moved. LSU still a 5.5-point favorite over the Aggies. The 2 that have seen movement are Ole Miss and Alabama. And I think this is a product of the betting public and sharp bettors taking account more of what we talk about here. If you're an everydayer, you've heard me say it. And that's people getting more informed deeply on every team instead of just the surface level knowledge. Remember, I said this all throughout the week leading up to and through SEC Media Days. My hand is in the air. Like, it's why I love going to SEC Media Days. I'm deep on LSU. I know everything there is to know about every player on LSU's roster. I go to that event and have a surface level knowledge of South Carolina. Like, I know Kennard is gone. I know Lenora Sellers is back at quarterback. I know they had a lot of guys drafted, 3 starters on the defensive linemen, Nickham and Worry at safeties. Like, I had these surfaces, but I don't know what they brought into the portal. I don't know what they have coming back across the board. How good's the offensive line? Who's replacing Rocket Sanders at running back? Like, I don't know all that, right? So you go to SEC Media Days and you learn these things. Well, I think some of the big takeaways coming out of things like SEC Media Days were LSU being elevated. I think people have learned, oh, wait, Garrett Nussmeier is a leading returning passer in college football. Oh, they went and signed the #1 transfer portal class in the country. Oh, Blake Baker from year 1 to year 2 at Missouri went from a defense in the 60s to a defense in the top 30s, top 15 in all the categories. And now he's doing that at LSU in year 2 with an opportunity with all these transfers they brought in. Like, I think it's starting to click for a lot of people on LSU. And similarly, teams like Ole Miss and Alabama have maybe had a little doubt creep in. Let me explain. The big change is Ole Miss. So at the beginning of June, 6 weeks ago, Ole Miss was a 2.5-point favorite over LSU. This was 6 weeks ago. Nobody's played a game. Spring was over. Nobody's played a game. But Ole Miss in Oxford was a 2.5-point favorite against LSU. Today, it's flipped. LSU is now projected a 2.5-point road favorite in Oxford. That is a massive shift. And I think it's a product of everyone understanding what has happened. And these 2 teams have basically switched places. Ole Miss a year ago had their 5th-year senior quarterback. They went all in the transfer portal. They pushed all the chips to the middle of the table to try to win a championship, and they came up short. And now coming out of it, a lot of people maybe were very high on their quarterback, Austin Simmons, because of the one series they saw him play against Georgia. But you look at everything else that's gone. They returned 4 starters total, 2 on each side of the ball. Like, it's a completely new team, and the schedule is favorable, but I think people look at LSU basically and Ole Miss switching places. So LSU now, it's completely flipped. LSU is a 2.5-point favorite in Oxford. And the Alabama game, this was 7.5. Alabama was a 7.5-point favorite over LSU and the line in June. Now it's 5.5. Alabama's still a favorite, but with nobody playing a game and that line moving 2 points is significant, saying maybe LSU is better than we gave them credit for, and maybe Alabama is going to have some real questions after being a 9-4 football team a year ago and losing Jalen Milroe, who I don't think was a great player, but was a great athlete and covered up, because of his ability to run, covered up a lot of mistakes and a lot of shortcomings for that Alabama football team a year ago. So all that to say, go back right? Go back before media days, all of our conversations about what we hope to get out of media days, which was let's get a deeper understanding across the board of the other 15 teams in the league. We have a deep understanding of LSU and a working knowledge of everyone else. Let's get a deep understanding of everyone else. And in so doing, what we've learned now is very clearly, okay, I think Florida probably going to be pretty good there with DJ Lagway. A&M, probably right where we thought. The game's in Baton Rouge. Ole Miss, 180. And Bama, probably a step back, but the big telltale is LSU, probably better than most thought going into SEC media days. And I told you, my objective in every interview I was going to do was to let everybody there that interviewed me about LSU was to make sure they knew two things. Number one, Garrett Nussmeier is the leading returning passer in college football. He's the only returning 4,000-yard passer in the country. And number two, LSU went and did what Ole Miss and Ohio State did a year ago. They went and spent a buttload, technical term, a buttload of money in the transfer portal to sign the best class of mercenaries they could, because you had a lot of really ticked off boosters after the Bryce Underwood situation that were motivated to go get really involved in the portal. It blows people away when I tell them that LSU's roster a year ago, LSU spent $5.5 million on that roster. You had Ohio State and Ole Miss spending upwards of $20 million. LSU wasn't even in the ballpark. You wonder why they went 8-4? Because they didn't have the talent on the roster to be able to beat the best teams on their roster. They do now. Can they execute it? Can they coach to that level? Those are big questions. Those are legitimate questions. And by the way, Ohio State, the national champion, lost 2 games a year ago. I'm not telling you LSU is going to be a juggernaut and run through their schedule. What I'm telling you is, unlike a year ago, they now have the talent on both sides of the ball in their 2 deep to beat any team they play. Not saying they're going to win every game. It's just saying they have the ability to beat any team on their schedule. That wasn't the case a year ago. And very clearly, the odds makers are showing that in these numbers. Now, fall camp will start, and we'll hope that everyone stays healthy and this team continues to develop. And they go on August the 30th to Clemson, South Carolina, and play a really clean game and win an opener for the first time since 2019. We'll see if that can happen. But in the meantime, you're starting to see among the people who actually make their livelihood setting these numbers, a little more belief in LSU coming out of talking season. Now they have to go prove it on the field. Another metric that went in LSU's favor, I'm excited to share with you next on Locked on LSU, your team every day. Did my show in Houston, my radio show, 3-hour radio show in Houston on Monday. You know what I did before I started that show? Popped a 5-hour energy. 5-hour energy. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-hour energy transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor that you love of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies, making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for energy for your energy game. Now, let's be honest. Some days on the course or off of it, you just need the extra boost to stay sharp and to stay energized. Think about what is that time where you've been on the golf course, maybe you've hit a 285-foot drive, maybe you're much longer, hit a 300-foot drive. Like, to have that energy boost to make it through 18 or through a tough workday, like I just explained, it is a great, easy-to-take product that works. So go to 5hourenergy.com. That's a numeral 5, 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September the 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-hour energy shots today. So if you were here last week, I reacted to the SEC media preseason all-conference team, and I was maybe not so kind to my media brethren. And I've explained to you in the past why I am not really high on the preseason all-conference team. By the way, the media is never right, but I explained why. Very, very brief Cliff's Notes for those that missed it. There were 1,100 credentialed media members at SEC Media Days. The 1,100 credentialed media all get a ballot to vote on first, second, third team preseason All-SEC, the projected order of finish, and the SEC champion. Of the 1,100 credentialed media members, 204 filled out a ballot. That is not that is 1 out of 5. That is not a representative sample of the media at SEC Media Days. And by the way, we don't know who the 204 were. Maybe it was all people that covered Texas or Texas and Alabama, and the lion's share of national media didn't bother. Or maybe it was all national media and there was no local media that vote. Whatever the case may be, it's all irrelevant. The point is, you have people who go to that event, as I've explained, and we just got done talking, local media that know their team deep, surface level knowledge of the rest of the league. You're going to have inherent bias. For years, SEC Media Days was held in Hoover, Alabama for 3 decades before they started moving it around. And as a result, you had every bit of Alabama media there. Every blogger, podcaster, YouTube creator, everybody. It's not to knock all them. It's just to say that you had an abundance, an overflow of Alabama media because of proximity. So a lot of Alabama and Auburn bias. So you had a very heavy lean there because you had a lot of fan media covering those teams that were there because of proximity. You know who never shows up? Missouri media. You're not. It's just why do you think Missouri was voted 12th in the league this year when they have arguably the easiest schedule in the conference? It's lunacy because nobody takes the time to sit there and look, which is why when Pro Football Focus put out their preseason all-conference team, my ears perked up. I'm more interested in what Pro Football Focus has to say because Pro Football Focus and their preseason all-conference team is more of an objective metric-based exercise. Okay, Pro Football Focus, and I say it all the time about Pro Football Focus, PFF is a metric. It's not the metric. It's something to consider. It's not the only thing to consider. And I think there is value in using PFF as a tool, not the tool, not the all be all end all, but a tool is something to consider. And it's very different than if a writer from Yahoo put out his or her preseason all-conference team. That's one person's very subjective opinion. Give me something rooted in some form of objective data. That's what I'm interested in seeing. Well, Pro Football Focus put out their preseason all-SEC team. And wouldn't you know it, that Garrett Nussmeier was named the preseason all-SEC quarterback by Pro Football Focus, because of course he was. You can look at me doing this podcast right now, wearing an LSU shirt, as an LSU alum, as someone who many of you probably think is an unapologetic LSU homer, which is comical to me because the former head coach at LSU and athletic director had me blacklisted. They literally wouldn't let anybody within LSU's athletic department come on any show I did because they thought I was too negative towards them. I guess maybe that means I'm doing something right. If too many people think I'm a homer and too many people think I'm a hater, maybe that means I try to find my center of objectivity. I've never hidden from the fact that I'm an LSU alum. I love LSU. I went there. I want them to win and everything. But I say it all the time. If I think they're going to be good, I'm going to tell you. If I think they're going to stink, I'm going to tell you. And I really don't care if you love that or hate that. It's just the only way I know how to do this. So when I look at Garrett Nussmeier being the preseason first team all-SEC by Pro Football Focus, of course he should be. He's the only returning passer in college football that threw for 4,000 yards. The media voted Lenoris Sellers preseason first team all-SEC, which is fundamentally absurd. Lenoris Sellers, for the first half of last season, averaged about 150 yards in the air. The biggest talking point about Lenoris Sellers the first half of the season was the fact that he was wearing rec specs under his helmet, not his awful play, because he couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. To his credit, in the second half of the season, he improved. More so his athleticism, his ability to run. But I think most people weren't watching South Carolina. They watched highlights, like the magnificent run he made in a game-changing play against Clemson in Clemson, a game where, by the way, they scored 17 total points. again, I'm not saying it's easy to go to Clemson and score points. I'm just saying let's not overhype a guy that has been a starter for 1 year and for half the year was atrocious and half the year was pretty good athletically, but still wasn't a great passer. Maybe Lenora Sellers turns the corner and is awesome this year. Maybe DJ Lagway lives up to his 5-star billing. Same with Arch Manning. Maybe someone like John Mateer, who nearly threw for 4,000 yards a season ago at Washington State, comes to the SEC at Oklahoma, doesn't miss a beat, and is awesome. Or maybe in the preseason all-conference team, we look at the most proven, accomplished veteran player returning at that position. And the guy that's the leading returning passer in college football would be a pretty safe bet right there. By the way, for whatever it's worth, the only other LSU player on the preseason all-conference team from Pro Football Focus was Xavion Thomas as the return specialist. And quite honestly, I'm not even sure Xavion Thomas is going to beat out Berrien Brown or Aaron Anderson as the return specialist on this team. So that remains to be seen. I have no problem with anything else. Listen, Whit Weeks was not a preseason All-SEC linebacker, according to Pro Football Focus. They only listed 2, and it was Anthony Hill from Texas and Torian York from Texas A&M. 2 really good players. Anthony Hill, I think, has a great shot to be the Butkus Award winner this year, but so does Whit Week. Say it all the time. You want to put someone on, you have to take someone off. I have no problem taking off someone like Lenora Sellers to put on Garrett Nussmeier, because Garrett Nussmeier is the leading returning passer in college football. And we mentioned it on our LSU preview, offensive preview episode. Garrett Nussmeier is 3,342 passing yards away from becoming the all-time leading passer in LSU history. If he replicates the season he had a year ago, Garrett Nussmeier will become LSU's all-time leading passer. By the way, if you're one of those ones saying, yeah, but you got to consider Lenora Sellers' rushing stats, fine. Consider both guys' rushing stats. Garrett Nussmeier still accounts for nearly 1,000 more yards of offense and more touchdowns than Lenora Sellers. Garrett Nussmeier is the right choice for preseason all-conference quarterback in the SEC. The most important thing, however, is who will win that award in the postseason, and that will be directly related to wins and losses. Both are going to have good stats. Can LSU win enough games to claim that mantle by the end of the season? That's what remains to be seen. And we're getting closer to the start of the season, and we're going to be talking about here on Locked on LSU. As we wrap up, you probably have seen at least the report that Keli Zinn is set to become the new athletic director at Rutgers. And I know sometimes, just like with support staff on the football staff, so too is it with administrators within the athletic department. Maybe the casual fan doesn't know everything those admins do on a day-to-day basis. But read anything about Keli Zinn, and you'll see phrases like rising star associated with her name. Keli Zinn is fantastic. She came to LSU in July of 2022 and is now the senior deputy athletic director and the COO, the chief operating officer. So over 3 years in Baton Rouge, Keli Zinn's job, by the way, has largely been, her direct associations have been football and gymnastics. But her job has been to create new revenue opportunities and new verticals for LSU athletics. Understand where we are in the current day and age of college athletics. She was hired at a time where we knew we were in NIL, but we knew that house settlement was coming and revenue share was coming. And what that means is, as we all know now, you're sharing $20.5 million of your revenue with your student athletes, meaning 2 things have to happen simultaneously. You need to lower your expenses and you need to increase your revenues. Well, lowering expenses is looking at budgets and saying, okay, where is there fat that we can trim? Where can we not maybe do with 3 less support staff personnel members? Where can we maybe take a commercial flight instead of a charter flight? Where can we stay at a mid-range hotel instead of a premium hotel? Like, those are the types of things where you can look and cut expenses that could be significant. But then more significant is how do you raise revenue? And that was has been part of Keli Zinn's charge, is to find new revenue streams for LSU athletics. And she's done a magnificent job. So Keli Zinn graduated from West Virginia in 2022. worked at Maryland in their athletic administration, then went back to West Virginia, where she became the highest-ranking female athletic administrator in the history of West Virginia. And then LSU hired her away to this current COO job in July of 2023. I said she graduated in 22. She graduated from West Virginia in 2002, excuse me. So Keli's in her early mid-40s. But I remember also what happened here recently at LSU with William Tate, the president of LSU, who is now at Rutgers. The writing was on the wall. The governor, Jeff Landry, was going to fire William Tate, was effectively told, hey, go find a job. He lands at Rutgers, taking the same job there. Rutgers was looking for an athletic director. Tate tried to hire Keli Zinn. She passed initially. She was a finalist for the Georgia Tech AD job. That went to a senior athletic administrator at Tennessee. And so Keli Zinn missing on the Georgia Tech job. Rutgers re-engaged with her, and it looks like now, according to NJ.com, she will be the Rutgers athletic director. It's kind of like hiring the wunderkind, hot young assistant, like offensive coordinator, right? You hire that great offensive coordinator. They do awesome within your program. Well, what's going to happen? A Power 5 job is going to come open, and they're going to be in line for it. Think LSU with Dave Aranda. Dave Aranda was always going to be a Power 5 head coach, and he got the job at Baylor. The same's going to happen for Blake Baker. The same's going to happen for Joe Sloan. It's going to happen for these guys. And it's the administrator equivalent with Keli Zinn. Rutgers has not confirmed it. LSU has not confirmed it. I did reach out personally to an LSU spokesperson for comment. That request went unreturned. But the bottom line is, you know you're hiring good people when your people are getting hired away for better jobs. And Scott Woodward did a great thing in hiring Keli Zinn. And now the charge, if and when this does become official and she leaves for Rutgers, is to hire the next version of Keli Zinn. But she did great work at LSU. We wish her well in her next phase at Rutgers. And now the onus is on Scott Woodward to replace her. Okay, that's going to do it for us here. Thanks for making us your first listen. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.